That is the second maybe toughest thing I've ever done in my life, is to drive in the car that day. We pulled into Moscow that night at about 9:30, picked our kids up. We had to go to the police station and have a meeting. And we wound up, they put us all up in a hotel that night. And the four of us laid in this hotel room. And there wasn't a lot of sleep that happened that night, but early in the morning, I got up. I told Jim, I'm going for a walk, and I walked to the house. My son was still there in it, and I just stood outside of it for a little bit. With a C, Mabbutt, M-A-B-B-U-T-T.
And I want to ask you, how long have you been doing this for?
I've been doing it for 16 years, and I just got reelected for another 4.
So what is it that, or I guess, when did you get the call on Sunday?
I got the call just a few minutes after noon that there were 4 homicides, but I didn't go to the scene because of law enforcement doing their investigation first, so I didn't actually go to the scene until about 5 or 5:30.
Can you walk us through, like, for our viewers, kind of the process between when police show up and then you guys getting the bodies and doing your examinations?
Sure. Well, law enforcement goes through and looks for any evidence, takes videos and in there, and they'll start talking with people. So I don't really need to be there for that. They can't move the bodies. I mean, the bodies have to stay as they were until the coroner gets there. So that's what my job is.
Now we have Kathy Macbeth, the coroner, saying that the bodies cannot be moved until the coroner gets there. She got the call around noon. So Ethan, Zana, Maddie and Katie, possibly all 4 victims, were still in 1122 King Road, right up to the next day. I wonder why. Bodies were supposed to be transported immediately to Spokane.
People, so I don't really need to be there for that. They can't move the bodies. I mean, the bodies have to stay as they were until the coroner gets there. So that is the second maybe toughest thing I've ever done in my life, is to drive in the car that day. Pulled into Moscow that night at about 9:30, picked our kids up. We had to go to the police station and have a meeting. And we wound up, they put us all up in a hotel that night. And the 4 of us laid in this hotel room. And there wasn't a lot of sleep that happened that night, but early in the morning, I got up. I told Jim, I'm going for a walk, and I walked to the house. My son was still there in it, and I just stood outside of it for a little bit. Got up. I told Jim, I'm going for a walk, and I walked to the house. My son was still there in it, and I just stood outside of it for a little bit. Came to see if there are some clues that are on them, some of the suspects' blood perhaps, or something under somebody's fingernails.
The coroner saying the autopsies have found the time of death sometime after 2 a.m. The autopsies have found the time of death sometime after 2 a.m.
I'm looking through the pictures. Like you said, they seem to be always together. I mean, they all go to high school and then college together also.
Elementary, high school, everything, college, they all went to the same university. Yeah, I mean, everything. We travel, we play, we hike, everything we do is all of us together. We're a pretty tight family.
Did you say that they were the ones that told you about this happening?
Yeah.
Yes.
We travel, we play, we hike, everything we do is all of us together. We're a pretty tight family.
Did you say that they were the ones that told you about this happening?
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know, whatever it is. This is something you wake up and you realize it's never going to go away. And it's very different. It's a very different. 2 a.m. is a dark hour, I can tell you that. Or I can tell you that. Like, This is something you wake up and you realize it's never going to go away. And it's very different. It's a very different. 2 a.m. is a dark hour, I can tell you that.
I spoke about Ethan and Zana's room a couple of days ago. I pointed out the tissue that is on whatever is blurred out. I believe that either that is the marks of where the victims were found, or the victims could be covered with a blanket. Sugar morning. If you pay close attention, there's another blurred out picture right straight ahead. So there are two blurred pictures. The one straight ahead, you see like there's a doorway. And it was always said that Ethan was found on the doorway of Zana. But I believe it wasn't the outside doorway of Zana. It was inside. I wonder if Zana had a closet in her room. But I think this is the red liquid that was leaking out, sipping out of the outskirts of the walls of the house. This all could have been planted there allegedly. I find it very interesting that there's a doorway there. I believe all this happened at 2 a.m. and I won't be surprised if it happened at Linda Lane or possibly in front of 1119 King Road, because it looked like somebody was taking pictures of people on the ground. They had plenty of time to stage it, but now the fact that we hear Stacy Chapin saying that they were put up in a hotel, she, her twins, and her husband, to spend the night. All the families were put up in a hotel, and she said the next day I told my husband Jim I was going to take a walk. I walked down to 1122 King Road, where my son's body, the bodies were still at 1122 King Road, she said. So I believe it's still the bodies on the floor. It's just been blurred out, in my opinion. Welcome back to my mental health and crime channel. My name is Huda London. I'm a licensed cognitive behavior therapist and a licensed mental health counselor. Please like, share, and subscribe. Today I'd like to go back on this clip I made yesterday. I personally believe it's really important. Stacy Chapin speaks about the fact that they were all put up in hotels. All the parents, when they got the awful news, and while they were in the hotels, the next morning she got up and she told her husband Jim, I need to take a walk. She took a walk and she walked to 1122 King Road. She said it was really hard for her because she walked and she stood outside 1122 King Road. She said the bodies were still at home. The unalived bodies that would be Ethan, Zana, Maddie, and Kaylee, may they rest in peace, were still at home. So my question is, why were the bodies still at home? Didn't the coroner, Macbeth, say herself that the bodies would be transported and that she was at the scene between 5 to 5:30? Why all these misinformations? Who is lying? And what are they hiding from us? What are they hiding from the public? Nothing is coming out in complete reports. Pay attention to that. Everything is coming out kind of like edited. Nothing is proper. But my question is, Ethan and Zana is clear to see, like I said from the very beginning, that it's just 2 a.m. I've always said it's just two separate crimes, and it's just 2 a.m. that something happened to Ethan and Zana. We can clearly hear that from Linda Lane, and I really believe it was at Queens Road. And the reason I believe it was at Queens Road is, if you remember, in the beginning, the clip that I've showed you all plenty of times with the Fox News reporter, the elderly black man. He calls Fox News and like, well, he's talking. He says, Martha, the crime scene was so bloody. There was red liquid everywhere on the walls. And then he says, while he's talking, the detectives behind him, they're like 5, 6 detectives, they start like running around. And then Martha asks from Fox News, what's going on? And he says, they're expanding the crime scene. I think they found something. So I think they found dry red liquid because they started expanding the crime scene. It looked towards Queen's apartment, right up towards Maddie's room side, the backyard. Let me know what y'all think. But I find it baffling that the bodies were left at home. Is that why they took the freezer? Was they just making an excuse that they needed to save their DNA evidence? Were they putting dismembered or organs or something, God forbid? Trigger warning. I'm just speculating here. And it makes sense completely with Stacy Chapin. She makes completely sense. She wouldn't lie about it, number one. Number two, it looks like there are two bodies in Zana's room and it was blurred out if you pay attention to it. Nothing seems to make sense. Everything seems to be so far from the truth, so far-fetched. And to all my subscribers who are wondering, that wasn't Zana at the grub truck. It was Peyton. It was Kaylee's sorority sister. She was at the grub truck with the black Idaho jumper. Zana was never seen at the grub truck because she was at the Sigma Chi, if you'll remember that. But it's just that the truth won't come out from the Sigma Chi or from the people, all the students who know them. Strange. So my question still remains. Why would they leave the unalived victims in the house? I don't think Stacy Chapin has any reason to lie, do you? Why would she lie? She said she walked all the way to 1122 King Road and she just stood outside the house. And she said my son was still, the bodies were still inside the house. So now we know exactly why the ambulance did not take the 4 victims to the hospital. Obviously, there was no victims to save, unfortunately, but the fact that we have been just giving so much misleading information, and then later on we are being accused that we are speculating, doesn't make sense. What are they hiding? Even the coroner herself said that something happened after 2 a.m. At 2 a.m. She didn't even say after, she said 2 a.m. Even if it's after 2 a.m., if it was close to 4 a.m. or after 4 a.m., she would have said after 3, but she said after 2. She would have said after 4, but she still decided to say after 2. And Ethan's mother answered the reporter by saying it was her triplets. It was Hunter or Maisie that called and told her what happened to Ethan. So they all knew by 2 a.m. So did the students. 10 a.m. the rest of the students knew, most of them. Let me know what you'll think. But I find it strange that the bodies were still at the home that night. So when did they actually take them? The next day? The day after? What was going on? So were the bodies removed before the coroner even came? This doesn't make sense. Please like, share, and subscribe.